Welcome to Freelance Sucks. Here we discuss the dark side of freelancing about which nobody usually talks out loud. In this show, we speak with experienced freelancers, and I'm sure listening to their stories helps you prepare for freelancers' challenges. My name is Yuri, I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Oliver Gehrmann, a freelance web developer with over 14 years of experience who also grows his Next Tab DE agency focused on helping clients achieve greater online success by setting up professional website, search engines optimization, and developing an online marketing strategy. So, welcome, Oliver.
Thank you so much, Shiri. It was a long introduction. I didn't know we did all of these things.
Yeah, I didn't know either. Now you make me question this. But anyway, for you, what is the most challenging part of being a freelancer?
Yeah, I think work-time balance at the end of the day. I mean, you just want to turn off work in the evening, but you feel like, oh, I have to deliver this tomorrow. I wanted to write another quote. I wanted to write an email to this other client, and then it's just so hard to turn off half the time. And then especially balancing the whole thing with a family on the side, on the side. I mean, that's already giving an indication of where my mind is. It just makes it so much harder. So I would definitely vote that into number one.
You know, in some of the conversations recent I had, one of the friends told me you can fill up two lives with work. So basically, it's never ending process.
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm curious, how do you know when to stop?
Oh, I'm very problematic. I wouldn't say I know when to stop. For me, the biggest problem, I enjoy my work a lot, and this is both a gift and a curse. If you ask my wife, she would say that this is 100% a curse and nothing else. And if you ask me, I think this is great because I don't mind putting another hour into a project or making the client happy because I enjoy doing the work. So it is a lot of it's a question of perspective more than anything else, in my personal opinion. But I grew up in a family where my dad was always hardworking, not unfortunately not always smart working, but my dad was very hardworking. At the end of the day, now he passed on. You kind of sometimes have to ask, was he in the right? Did he do the right thing? And then when you start asking yourself that question, it becomes very depressing very fast. So we don't really want to go there. This is like a British podcast at that point when we go with dark humor.
So what is the difference between hard working and smart working?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's like the 80-20 rule, Pareto principle. There is certain stuff that you're doing where the client is asking you for like another iteration, and instead of just saying, okay, we can do that, but it's going to increase the price by 40% or something, and I think it's going to give you a better product in terms of like 10%. So are you sure you want to do that? And then the client would very quickly say, oh no, in that case, I don't want to do it. I think it's fine as it is. So half the time, I think it's a matter of bad communication because we've all been there where a client was like, hey, can you do this until Friday? And then for some reason, at some point, you asked, do you really need it Friday? Because you're flooded with work. And they say, oh, I mean, at the end of next week would be great too. And you're like, why did you ask Friday? Like, how do you even come up? So you're angry at that point, both at yourself and also more so at the client. Where like, how do you even get to that point to ask somebody like, can you do this 7 days earlier than I need it? But that's one of those things, I guess.
You know, sometimes it may you may be afraid of asking clients this question.
Mm.
Do you really need it on Friday? Because you may like think, oh, maybe they will think that I'm not a good specialist. Maybe we can lose a client because of that. So I'm curious, when you asked this question for the first time, how did you feel?
Well, you kind of feel bad about it because you're like, I don't want to inconvenience my client because they are paying me money at the end of the day. But then when you got the reply for the first time and it is something like, oh yeah, I mean, Wednesday is fine too, or Friday is fine too a week after, you immediately shift your mindset and you think to yourself, I have to ask this question now every time because apparently people don't treat my time with the respect that it deserves, at least in my personal opinion. And then you start questioning your whole worldview as a freelancer, really. You're like, what other things are people doing to me that I'm not even aware of? When they might be asking for a quote for something and they already know that I'm going to be spending this budget on it and I'm not mad about it. And then you realize that you have to second guess a lot of the things you're doing and improve your own processes.
How do you choose between being honest with client and kind of maybe even get less for yourself and doing more without telling anything?
Yeah, so I believe in transparency. I have told clients very upfront that I am not the right person for the job. And in some cases, to my own surprise, they said, okay, now we really want to go with you because we know that you're going to be honest with us. And I didn't mean this as a humble brag, even though it might sound like that. But I do believe that transparency goes a very long way. And building that mutual trust is like the most important thing in a freelance business because even if you might not be the right person for the job right now, people switch companies, they have new challenges, and they will appreciate that you didn't sell them something mediocre, what wasn't what they were expecting. They have made their experiences with the other company, for better or worse, and there's a very good chance that they will come back to you at that point because they're like, oh, I think now this guy would have something for me. So I always am like really 100% transparent. I've also told clients, this is where I'm making my money. And this, what we're doing right here, is more like to maintain the relationship. And this is not always appreciated, but the people, let's put it this way. So you can decide as a freelancer, in my personal opinion, to go down one of two paths. One path is you don't try to offend anybody, and then let's say of the 100% of people you interact with, 70%, 80% might be like, oh, he's a nice guy, and then maybe 10% will really love you and working with you. Or you can be straight upfront, give it to them like without no holds barred and whatnot. You will turn away a much larger percentage of people. Like even 60% could be that are like, oh, I don't want to work with this guy ever. But the other 40%, it's not like out of those 40%, 5% will love you. The other 40% will 100% love you. They will be like, oh, this guy tells it like it is. He's a straight shooter. He's not giving me all of this marketing speak. He's getting to the point. He's not wasting my time. So even though you're turning away a lot of people up front, the people that remain will really be having a vibe with you. They will love to work with you. And I think that's the way to go.
It sounds like this transparency really helps you to build these long-term relationships.
Absolutely. I think it's also great for your mental health, to be honest. If you
Yeah.
don't have to BS people and tell them what they want to hear, and instead you just tell them what's up. I personally think that it's one of the reasons why I became a freelancer. I don't like all the corporate red tape when you have to sound like when you have to tell someone, oh, I don't think this is the ideal solution. And what you're thinking is, this is complete and utter horse garbage, what you just produced there. And I love being a freelancer. And obviously, you're not always able to say it like that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot less that is on the line when you're a freelancer because you do have other clients at the end of the day.
What is the most time-consuming thing you must deal with as a freelancer, except for work itself?
Well, except for work itself. I mean, I would basically put all the writing quotes and bookkeeping stuff. I would categorize that as stuff that in my mind at least doesn't have to be done. It's like the necessity that we have to do in this business. And I, I just kind of hate it. I love programming. I love doing my job, like what I excel at. And then all the other things that comes with the side, like invoicing, bookkeeping, and like all of that, I just hate it so much. If we could get rid of it, or at least remove some of the bureaucratic red tape that we have, especially in this country, in Germany, that would make our lives, our collective lives as freelancers, so much easier, in my opinion.
How do you deal with all those things? Maybe you delegate them, or like what is your process?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely try to delegate them as much as possible. But there's always, in our case, the main issue that we are making, or the main problem we're causing for ourselves is we don't say, oh, we're the web design agency for this particular one thing. Because we kind of know mostly everything about WordPress, but it doesn't help if you have the first client who is in landscaping business, and then you have the next client and they're doing yoga courses, and then you have the next client and they want to have an online course for maths, and these are actual clients that we have. It's not like I'm coming up with this. So you have to constantly reinvent the wheel, and that makes it also so much harder if you have new people in the company and they're like, so how do we do this? And then we're like, oh, for this client we're doing it like that, but for that other client we're doing it like that. And that's just completely the wrong approach. It would make just so much more sense to say, hey, we're the number one thing. If you need an online course based on WordPress, so come to us, we can set that up for you. And then the next guy's like, hey, my yoga massage parlor wants, and they're like, nope, nope, next, next. It's not for us.
What is the most nerve-wracking thing you must deal with as a freelancer?
Well, I think when people like they really want to work with you, you do a good job, they are happy with the product and everything, and then they don't pay you. I
Mm.
don't think there's anything that is more nerve-wracking, especially if it keeps going for a longer period of time. So because you're just starting to grind your own gears, and then you're like, so how does this happen? I want this particular thing. I'm going up to someone and I'm like, hey, I want this from you. Like, even if you're going to a bakery and you're like, oh, I want to have this great cake, and then they bake it for you, and you're like, okay, I don't want to pay for that, or I can't pay right now, but I'm going to do it next year. Like, how does it happen? Like who does this? I mean, obviously sometimes there are exceptions and whatnot, but I don't know. I have too many clients, in my personal opinion, that are paying late more often than they should be, in my personal opinion. And I think it's a big issue. So we have thought about refactoring solutions where you just basically push all the invoices away to another company and they give you the money right away, and you have to pay a fee for that. And they take care of all the rest. Like if they have to write red letters and whatnot, they take care of it.
Am I understanding it correctly that you are not taking an upfront payment?
Well, I do. But there's sometimes if somebody wants something for like 350 euros, we're like, okay, whatever. We're like, what's the point of doing like 175? Normally it's 50% for us. We don't do like a 50% upfront payment for like a smaller job. Like, I need to have my website in line with GDPR regulation. I'm like, okay, we're just going to get that done, and then we're going to send you an invoice. And the other day, I have a client who hasn't been paying for more than a year. And then I phoned her. She was like, hey, hello. And then I said who I am. And then immediately, in the middle of me saying my name, she was like, I can't hear you, can't hear you, I can't hear you too. And she hung up. And I was like, this is like the most obvious like BS acting I have ever come across. Because like the connection was fine just up until a second ago, and then once I said my name, in the middle of me saying my, you could hear the panic through the phone, and I was like, Jesus Christ, how sad is that? And she
Yeah.
didn't get back to me. And this is one of those 350 euro projects, and I'm like, why would you do that? Like, I couldn't sleep at night if this was me.
What is the main difference between clients who pay like big sum amount of money and between clients who have like small tasks like 200, 300 euros?
Yeah, the clients that pay big amounts of money will be 500% more understanding. They will never nag you with more iterations when you didn't agree to them up front. Like, in one word, they are professionals. The people that ask you for something for 300 bucks, they don't have money because they don't have a successful company, and they don't know what it entails, and they think that they are entitled to like 400 things because they do the same thing for their clients, and that is why they're not successful. Now I'm really like kicking down at this point, but this has been my experience, like 100%. The people that are like the cheapest and that want to haggle with you and ask 4 times for the price, and if you could get a reduction and whatnot, those are 80-20 rule. Those are the 20%. They waste so much of your time, and there's like nothing that sticks with you in the end. And some
Yeah.
of those guys are even crazier because there's a ranking, Ollie's personal ranking of shitty clients. So at the almost at the top are the people that don't have money but want like a lot of stuff from you. So those are very hard to deal with, in my opinion. They are like on step 3 out of 10 or something. But the number one thing, the most annoying client by far, is the guy that acts the same way. He's haggling with you. He wants reductions. He asks every time, oh, can we do another iteration? He doesn't want to pay for it, and he's selling your work to somebody else for 5 times the amount. And I know people like that. They are the absolute worst in the business. They like, if I'm making 10K selling a website to somebody in Munich, because people apparently have money to throw around in Bavaria. Okay, good to know. I mean, I'm from Bavaria, but I live in Berlin. People are just like used to paying ridiculous amounts of money. They are outsourcing part of that work to me, and they don't want to pay me 2K because
Yeah.
of reasons. These people are really like, I don't want to work with you ever again.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I totally get it, and that's the reason I'm asking, because it's always interesting. I feel like the people who are paying more money, they care more about the work get done, in a good way that it works, instead of
The,
like going into these details.
the people that pay a lot of money tend to pay for a result, as you said. They want to get the job done. They don't care how you do it most of the time. They just want to, so they are busy with other stuff because they have a working company and they just want to outsource something so they can take care of the things that makes money for them. So they don't want to get into the nitty gritty with you. They don't want to understand what the results are of this. They just want to get the job done at hand. And if it costs more, they will be happy to pay more because they want to focus on the other things that makes them money. The people that don't have money, they have time because
Yeah.
their business is not making any money. So they want to understand everything. They want to do it themselves in the future. So they're wasting more of your time and so on.
As a freelancer, do you ever feel professional loneliness?
I don't think this is the case for me, but I think that has a lot to do with how I'm working because most of my work I'm doing during a live stream for that reason. Like I'm not like lonely sitting on my computer doing my work. I'm chatting with people and it feels like there's a community there and we have like a common goal because most of the people watching my live stream are also working and they want to learn from me in some cases or they just want to be entertained or listen to somebody rant about work topics. So it doesn't seem lonely for me, to be honest.
Also, I remember the Freelance Unlocked interview told that it's also a great way to focus and to deal
Yes.
with procrastination.
Yeah. This is my number one thing. There have been questions. Am I ever doing any work outside of the live streams? And I mostly do other work that I cannot live stream, like bookkeeping, writing quotes and invoices and stuff like that. But like whatever I can do in the live stream, I will do in the live stream because it's just that much easier for me to just like do focused work.
If your friend wanted to become a freelancer, what are top three things you'd advise them to consider before doing it?
Okay, well, I think that the number one thing that people need to know is that it is easier than you think. So this is one of those human traits. When so can I go on a little tangent here? Yes, okay, I see the thumbs up sign. So the thing is this: when people are about to get married, they will have an idea in their head of what it's going to be for the rest of their lives, especially women. Now I'm going here, I'm going all out here. So they will think, oh, once we're married, we're going to wake up in the morning, we're going to see the sunrise, we're going to have breakfast together in bed, ideally. Men will think that they're going to have something else after breakfast in bed together. And then we're going to be happy until the rest of our lives. And then it turns out that life is not like that. You will have shitty days, you will argue. If you have kids, there's going to be like a whole bag of worms that comes with kids, basically, and so on. And the problem is that human minds are basically hardwired to put a lot of emphasis on whatever you're thinking about in that moment. Because this goes both ways. This is not only with positive stuff where you're like, oh, once we're married, it's going to be so great. It's also with negative stuff. If you get the diagnosis, and this is a macabre example, if you get the diagnosis that you are HIV positive, you will think in that very moment, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, I'm going to think, oh, I got AIDS. I'm going to go to work. On the way to work, you're going to think, oh, I have HIV. You're going to be on lunch break. You should be talking to your friends, but you're going to think, oh no, I got HIV, and so on. And it's not like that. And I'm not speaking from experience here, but I know with other stuff. You will think about that. Obviously, it's going to be a big part of your life going forward, but it's not going to be dominating everything, every thought, every second of your life going forwards. And the same is true with freelancing. You're going to run into problems like you're going to deliver something to the agency because they need to have some paperwork. And you will think in that very moment that you're thinking about this is the worst thing that has ever happened to you. And how did anybody ever figure this out? And it's so hard and whatnot. But you're going to pull through. And then there's going to be another problem. And then when you start thinking about that problem, you're again going to think like, oh my God, this is so terrible. And it's just not like that. So number one advice, and I'm sorry, this has taken forever to just like package this, but the number one advice is it's not as hard as you think. Even if your mind is tricking you and thinking this is the worst thing ever, it will be fine. You're gonna be fine. Other people have figured this out. You can figure it out. Shall we go into two more pieces of advice, or is this enough?
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
All right. So this is the first thing. The second thing that people really need to know, in my personal opinion, is whatever your 100% is very likely going to be 150% for the client. So if you're doing a job and you're like, oh, I'm 80% there, this looks really, really good, and now I could spend 5 more hours to get the last 20%, talk to your client first. There is a very good chance that the client didn't even have an idea that what you are about to deliver was possible in the first place. They had no idea that, like in my case with the website, you could do this and that, like animations and stuff is like popping in when you're scrolling over the site. They didn't even know this was possible. So to them, your 80% might be 120%. So they are already more than happy with what you are about to deliver. So those last 20% that are gonna cost you the 5 extra hours, which is gonna kill your margin and like your fun in life and everything, you don't have to do those. You're gonna be fine more often than not with delivering what you think is like 80%, because the client will immediately think like, oh, this is great. This is completely blowing all of our expectations out of the water. So that's the second piece of advice. And then the third piece of advice is something that took me a very long time to understand. This also, it's true for the second thing as well, but for the third thing even more so. A lot of people think that when they are freelancing, that this is like a journey, and they're traveling a road, and they are basically at the bottom of the road in a weird sense. And then over time, they will get better clients, and then they're going up a little bit. And then after a little bit more time, they will raise their prices, and then they're going up on the road a little bit more, and so on and so on and so on. So people think that this freelance journey is something that starts at the bottom, and then over time, we're going up a little bit, we're going up a little bit, we're going up a little bit. And then they put themselves into this position thinking, oh, I'm down here. This client is asking stuff of me, and that's kind of out of proportion to what I'm about to charge for this, but I'm down here, so I'm going to do it anyway. And then in the future, when I'm going to have the better clients, when I'm going to write the better quotes, when I have better positioning and all of the other things, then I'm going to say no to this. So many people are keeping themselves subconsciously on the lower road, basically, by not acting like they are already up there. And I know this is a bit of a weird concept, but I guess you've been around freelancers for long enough, so you will immediately be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. This is very hard to figure out when you're starting a freelance business, but you basically have to understand that you have to act from a position of strength, like you are the authority in the field, like you know exactly what you're doing. And then as soon as you feel like, oh, I'm not sure this is a reasonable request that the client has, you have to act like the guy that has too much work, too many clients, wouldn't deal with this kind of BS, and you would basically tell the client no to this kind of stuff. And this will like pay dividends going forward, because you're not going to be abused as much. People are not going to haggle down the prices as much, because you're acting from a position of strength. And I think this is very likely the most important piece of advice, to be honest.
You know, I wish to have the sky's the limit, but time is the limit. So the final question, if you were starting freelancing today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
I think the number one thing is definitely going down one niche, completely trying to focus on one niche, and then trying to become an authority in this particular niche. So instead of being like, hey, we're doing any kind of web design, I would immediately like look for one particular niche. Ideally, you might have somebody in your like inner circle or in your friendship group, or you know someone who needs something, and then you start delivering for them, and then you find similar clients in the same niche, because now you know what the typical problems are for this particular niche. So at the end of last year on my live stream, we did a Q&A, and one guy asked the question, and he said, so I have this friend who's like a serial entrepreneur, and he's now in his third company, and they were all successful. And he said, the biggest surprise that he learned over time was that the best way to become an entrepreneur for him was to just go into any field where you think there's potential, even if you know absolutely nothing about the field, because you will eventually find out all the things that matter in this field. You know there's a market there, because this is why you went into the field in the first place. And then you will just grow in that niche, in that field. And my immediate response was like, well, that sounds like a bunch of crap, to be honest. And then I thought about it for a little bit longer, and I was like, no, he is 100% right. I think this is the least intuitive takeaway for someone who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, that you can actually excel in a field where you know next to nothing about. You just go in that field, you talk to your clients, they will tell you what you need, you will deliver, they will tell you if it sucked or if it was good, you will iterate and you will become better. And then you're gonna be the authority over time in that particular niche. So you shouldn't overthink it. You should really just see a problem and start solving it, even if you know nothing about it. I think this is the best way.
I feel like about online stuff, especially, it's definitely works that way. I think that's only a few niches where it won't work. Maybe it's a surgery, like brain surgery or heart surgery.
Yes,
It's a little bit harder. But
absolutely. Yes.
all these unnecessary things that people think that are very valuable, but at the end of the day, yeah, you can make mistakes. It's okay. So
I agree.
Ole, I totally agree, and I'm happy to have this conversation with you. And I have so much thoughts, and it's very exciting to hear your approach. And I think that freelancers really need to, first of all, connect with you, and secondly, approach what they are doing in this like real way, not trying to flatter everyone, not trying to be like usable and okayish for everyone, but like totally stay their ground, be very understanding of what exactly they are doing, and just act as a professional, be professional. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience, and it's super valuable to talk to you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if anybody wants to hook up, you can find me on LinkedIn. And under every video that we post on our YouTube channel, we do have a link to our Discord. And this is like the best way to stay in touch with me, because Discord is a bit more like people that are like-minded connect, whereas LinkedIn often is a bit more shallow in some cases.
Got it. Thank you very much. And for those who listen, thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button or 5 stars and share it with your friend. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.